The economy may be sputtering, but real estate is still firing. As it does, foreign money is pouring in, with Chinese buyers alone splurging $7 billion in Sydney and Melbourne. That's expected to hit $60 billion by 2020, according to Credit Suisse. With so much money washing through, the Australian government is under mounting pressure to strengthen its laws against money laundering. In a scathing critique, the global body that monitors the proceeds of crime says Australia is an attractive destination for dirty money. The lack of regulation is in stark contrast to the flurry of activity over illegal foreign ownership of housing. There's been a parliamentary inquiry, the tax office has been handed powers to investigate, and in March the Treasurer forced the sale of a $39 million Sydney mansion.
We are very serious about enforcing the law. We are very serious about integrity in our foreign investment system.
But as big city house prices continue to boom, it may be hard for the government to resist tougher measures on money laundering much longer. Neil Woolridge has this report.
Start me where you like. Now it's where we finish that's important.
Every weekend, thousands of hopefuls take their chances in the housing market. And with Sydney and Melbourne prices still booming despite a sluggish economy, they could be forgiven for thinking something was amiss.
At $2,025,000, can I see $2,050,000?
Already, suspicions are high that non-residents are buying established homes in breach of Australia's foreign ownership laws. But another threat that may be going largely undetected is the proceeds of crime, with authorities conceding that Australian real estate is an easy target for money launderers.
I think it is a softer target. Certainly when you look at some of our trading partners, Singapore, the US and the UK, the real estate industry is captured under the AML regulations in those jurisdictions.
Earlier this year, the key global body fighting money laundering, the Financial Action Task Force, warned that Australia is vulnerable because real estate is not covered by Australia's anti-money laundering or AML rules. The risk is that criminals use proceeds of crime to buy property, often at inflated prices, then sell at a later date. What was dirty money gets washed through real estate, then appears to be clean. In its report, the Financial Action Task Force says large amounts are suspected to be laundered out of China into the Australian real estate market. And of great concern is that Australia has not brought real estate agents within the anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing regime. While nobody knows how much laundered money has hit Australian real estate, Credit Suisse estimates $60 billion of Chinese investment will reach our shores in the next 6 years. And even if only a small fraction of that is illegal money, it would still be in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars.
It was reasonably critical, but I suppose I'd describe it as being mixed. Of the 40 or so recommendations that FATF have proposed for combating money laundering and terrorism financing, Australia was assessed as being largely compliant or compliant with only 24.
In contrast to this year's high-profile crackdown on illegal foreign ownership of property, successive governments have been much quieter on money laundering through real estate. The draft rules to bring agents into the anti-money laundering regime were introduced in 2007, but still haven't been brought into law.
There's a bit of a consensus now that the government's hands are tied here. It can't afford to be seen as doing nothing in relation to the criticisms that have been levelled by FATF and others. It's obviously not a good look to be seen as dithering or a laggard when it comes to money laundering in the current environment.
And while Australia has so far failed to bring real estate agents into its money laundering regime, others like the US and the UK have. London police have investigated 140 property transactions worth $400 million over the past decade, and now the British government is promising a register of property owned by foreign companies.
We need to stop corrupt officials or organised criminals using anonymous shell companies to invest their ill-gotten gains in London property without being tracked down.
The Federal Police restrained just $13 million in residential property in the 2013 financial year. But as concerns over some eye-popping property sales mount, more action may be looming. This student accommodation block in suburban Melbourne is just one of the properties the Australian Federal Police has in its sights. It was sold in 2013 for $22 million, nearly $5 million above its estimated market value. There are suspicions the extra money was then paid as kickbacks to corrupt Malaysian officials. The AFP is now investigating $80 million in property transactions from the same group of people. Real estate agents are worried they'll face an onerous compliance burden if they're brought into the anti-money laundering rules. But PwC's Malcolm Shackle says it may also cause headaches for the Australian money laundering regulator, AUSTRAC, which already has 14,000 businesses to monitor.
You bring in real estate, the real estate industry, and all of a sudden that doubles, triples or whatever. So I think there is an issue around resourcing and there's an issue around the compliance burden as well.
But with property prices in key markets continuing to soar and international pressure mounting, it may be too hard for even this red tape-averse government to put off reform much longer.